in New York this morning. So a federal office in New York City was attacked earlier this morning. I think we actually have the footage of this in which an individual approached the law enforcement building, dumped a bunch of fuel onto the ground in front of the 26 Federal Plaza in New York City, which houses Immigration, Custom and Enforcement's field office. And here's what that looked like from the individual recording kind of above from a window up above the street. So you can see this masked individual carrying their bag. The lady recording the video gasps. He dumps out this liquid and then lights it on fire. It catches him on fire a little bit because he's an idiot.
Oh my God!
And then he starts running away.
Oh my God!
He then turns around about 200 feet away.
Oh my God!
As law enforcement begins rushing the individual.
Get away from there!
Again, the commentary from the lady recording from the top building.
Get away from there! No, get away from there!
He then throws something at the law enforcement. You can see right in that quick moment.
No, get away from there!
He chucks something at the law enforcement.
Oh my God!
And then he goes around the other side of the building, or he tries to anyway. Other person kind of goes away, and then we have this individual being wrestled to the ground by law enforcement. Radio crew, we have to send you to the commercial break. We're going to cover some of this in detail and the response, again, as we see individuals attempting to create mass casualty events amid both the political and global chaos. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal. Now, as this individual was wrestled to the ground, we got a closer look at the guy as he was being muscled away. This individual's name is Andrew Arabaca. He is a 43-year-old U.S. Army veteran. I mean, he served around in the early aughts from 2001 to 2005. But he's currently the suspect in custody for this incident. So, again, this happens at about 8:20, 8:30 a.m. Eastern. According to the official report here, he poured gasoline or a flammable liquid, I think it's gas because of how it caught, I don't think it was kerosene, on the ground of the stairs, ignited it, and then had a large firework in a canister, described as an incendiary device or makeshift device with fireworks and accelerant, causing flames and smoke. He then fired 5 to 7 pellets from an airsoft rifle toward the building. Now, I believe we have the police report on this. I think this is clip 11 of the post kind of press conference here.
Today, just before 9 a.m., a man by the name of Andrew Arabaca, A-R-R-A-B-A-C-A, arrived at 26 Federal Plaza, just behind us on Worth Street, at the employee entrance to the building, where he ignited gasoline. He poured gasoline onto the ground and ignited it with a lighter and an incendiary device. That device was a firework, a large firework in a canister. That proceeded to catch on fire, pretty big flame as you've seen on the internet. He then pulled out an airsoft rifle and fired 5 to 7 pellets, if you will, in the direction of 26 Federal Plaza. At that time, Federal Protective Services, 2 officers, a gray suit, a contractor with Allied that is employed to guard this building. And those 3 people and the 2 officers standing behind me in the blue shirts are the officers that intervened and took Mr. Arabaca into custody.
Now, some of the paraphernalia that they found on the individual, and if we do have this, yes, we have this here. A cart with a sign reading, quote, "ICE off our streets," Immigration Customs Enforcement, and anti-ICE literature was recovered, along with other items. 3 people suffered minor injuries, the 2 federal employees and government workers, and 1 civilian. Reportedly, an immigrant at the building was there for a hearing. All of these individuals were treated and released or had non-life-threatening issues. So the FBI officials described him as a, quote, anti-American, anti-government extremist with a history of anti-ICE activity. He reportedly told investigators he was targeting the building and It was, quote, okay if he hurt or killed people, end quote, going in and out. And we're not going to play this clip because the language is rather unfriendly for different things. But he allegedly yelled very derogatory terms at ICE during the arrest. So various reports link him to Poughkeepsie in New York. Authorities have tied him to prior anti-ICE activism protests. Of course, he brought all kinds of weird things. Now, some accounts are saying he has a manifesto. I do not have any information to confirm whether or not the man had some kind of a manifesto. But no formal charges have been publicly announced yet, at least as far as the latest reports here at 7:35 on July 20th. And it's unclear about, legal case. I do know that Zoran Mamdani got out there and he tried to get ahead of this because people have pointed out that he's been, again, calling to abolish ICE. He's been ramping up the rhetoric, calling for revolutionary style activity and action. And so he gets out in front of the public, of course. And he then says, well, this was very, very deeply disturbing. Deeply disturbing. I believe no one was seriously injured and that a suspect is in custody. My team is in touch with the NYPD and will support the federal investigation. Our administration will continue to ensure that every New Yorker is safe in their city and to hold any accountable who threatened that. There's an issue with this. There's an issue. Radio crew, welcome back from your commercial break. As I was just telling the fine folks here over on the live stream and the TV side of things, there's a significant issue with the mayor of New York City, Democratic Socialist Zoran Mamdani, after this incident, just saying, oh man, what happened? This attempted firebombing, and he was apparently also armed with several knives, other weapons. Said he was just deeply disturbed. I'm relieved no one was injured. It's a very, very blasé, kind of empty situation. Why is that weird? Because whenever there is an individual in the crime that happens to be Islamic who is injured, or if they're even around the area, he immediately rushes to claim something is Islamophobic. He immediately rushes to blame some kind of Israeli trained action or other kinds of stupid nonsense. But when it actually comes to an individual who very clearly was assaulting immigration customs enforcement, now he doesn't have anything to say about the motives of the individual. He doesn't have anything to say at all. And of course, this is a very, very clear pattern because Mamdani made it perfectly clear in an interview over the weekend with Lulu over from the New York Times. He's more than happy to fuel this kind of stuff against ICE.
ICE is an agency that has terrorized Americans across this country and others that live in this country. Just the other day, a man wasn't even 30 years old, said goodbye to his wife and his child, and moments later was shot by ICE agents in Maine. And this was not even a month after a man was killed in Texas. And so when we're talking about all of this, I often think about it through a prism of legality, consistency, and humanity, and an understanding that immigration policy doesn't just affect those without status. It affects an entire city.
Just for the record, I desperately hate code switching. I can't stand it. I can't stand it at any time, in any place. We'll get to this in a little bit here because AOC's been, made fun of over the weekend for this kind of stuff as well. But welcome back to NPR. I'm just so smarmy and caring and wonderful. The ICE is just so bad. But the content, the substance of what he is saying, he is accusing the entire organization. And again, the more we find out about the individuals, like, for example, the guy in Maine that ICE shot, the more if we find out about, for example, the drugs in his vehicle, the more that we find out about this individual, it's like, well, hang on there. And he's not exactly Maryland man in this particular case, or maybe he is. We're finding more and more that the individuals that Mamdani is siding with here, again, although as though many of you need this kind of an outline, the individuals that Mamdani is siding with here are those who commit and cause and encourage the violence. And then when the act of violence happens, is very kind of blasé, empty kind of condemnation, and then sets everything up for the next one.
To the Dominican barbershop in Harlem, and the owner was telling me that everyone in the barbershop had status. They all had status, and yet most of them were terrified to come to work.
Why? If most of them had status, if they had status, why are they afraid to come to work? It sounds like you, from your job as the mayor of New York City, should say, hey, if you're supposed to be here and you have the status to be here, there's no issue. What's my evidence for this? Again, all of the individual, if you have your social security card and a work permit to be here, and Immigration Customs Enforcement stops you, and you're like, hey, look, I got it right here. I see video after video after video of the people just being like, oh, all right, cool, thanks, appreciate it, take care.
Because they know that for so much of ICE's operations, it has little to do with legality. It has to do with profiling, and it has to do with a vision of creating the largest deportation machine this country has ever seen.
And that's the issue. It's not whether or not individuals should be deported. It is simply the act itself, again, like the individual that Mamdani brought out for his anti-landlord, seize the property, seize the means of property kind of conference he had last week, where the ladies called any kind of eviction overt violence. None of this is new. None of this is at all something that is brand new in the party, yet it has become, at least at this present time, the main mode for how the Democratic Party is functioning in its entirety. And by the way, if you think this is just relegated to New York City, Mamdani is making it clear, as all socialists are, they have 3 priorities and 3 alone. Number 1, to dismantle and get rid of law enforcement. And that means to get rid of Immigration Customs Enforcement. Again, as Mamdani has said in constant calls to abolish ICE, that is to get rid and defund police. As Mamdani has said all the time, consistently, when he talks about police, he says that police should be removed from high crime or known crime areas. This was him during his campaign.
So do you think that we have to almost do without policing in certain areas which are labeled to be high crimes, to have alternative bodies, do the policing in a more compassionate, more merciful, more social, assisting and helping more than arresting and putting in jail?
I absolutely think that what we need to do is give support and funding to institutions that are trained to deal with these kinds of issues. Mm-hmm. As you said, if you're having an argument with someone and there's a risk of it escalating, who is better positioned to de-escalate it? Someone who is well known in the community, or someone who has been trained specifically in de-escalation, mm-hmm. or a stranger who has a gun? And we see so many situations where encounters with police, the police arrive and all of a sudden the tension rises even astronomically.
Yeah, because there's someone there doing crimes. That's the point. The cop shows up, the person who is doing crimes has now been caught. That's the point for the rise of the tension. But again, the idea is to get rid of law enforcement completely. That's why, again, he calls for violent individuals to be released from prison, like the guy who charged at cops with a knife. On the video, you see literally the cops with their body cameras on are being rushed by this guy with a knife after his wife called on the cops to come over and save her from her knife brandishing husband. And then Mamdani said, oh, we need to release him out of there. Oh, if only a social worker had showed up and gave him a big Neil from Disney's Santa Claus sweater therapist hug, as though that would have solved absolutely everything.